Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Wookey. I'm the CEO of Blueprint, and I'd like to welcome you all. Let me tell you why I'm leading Blueprint. It's because I deeply believe that what is most worthwhile is a human being fully alive. I also believe that there's significant unrealized potential in people at work, and that realizing that can help transform both business and society for mutual benefit. The need is real and urgent to bring together the fulfillment of people at work, the success of business, and the wider prosperity of society. There's huge potential if we can unite these, and I believe that Blueprint can help people and businesses to unlock that potential for themselves. So my hope for today is that we'll each have a bit of space and time to imagine for a moment what it would mean for more of that potential to be realized and what we would do with it. So what do I mean by unrealized potential? Well, let me tell you two stories. A few years ago, when I was working as an accountant, I got to know the head of foreign exchange of a broking firm we were doing some work with. We went out to dinner one evening, and he told me a story. He said, yeah, I left school at 16. The teacher said, look at Pedder at the back of the class. He's absolutely useless. He's going to achieve nothing with his life. And he said, I was determined to prove them wrong, and I've done really well. I've really enjoyed it. It's fantastic. I said, do you enjoy it now? And he said, well, not really. I've done foreign exchange. I said, what would you like to do? He said, well, do you know what? I'd really like to teach. I'd like to go and teach people like me and do a better job than that teacher did. So I said, well, what's stopping you? And he said, well, I've got a 5-bedroom house in Barnes. So I said, well, you told me you haven't got a wife or kids, so why don't you sell a house and just go and become a teacher? And he just looked at me and thought, well, not sure really. So that's unrealized potential. Let me tell you another story. For the last 12 years, I've been lucky enough to run a small internship program, which places bright graduates who are interested in a career in politics and public life. And about 9 years ago, we had a girl apply. She was amazed to be interviewed, and still more amazed to get on the scheme. She was working in a pub in Essex. She had no connections. Her family had absolutely no connections. And when we interviewed her, we could see that this girl, she was shy, she was diffident, she lacked self-confidence, but there was something about her. She had a passion. In her case, it was a passion for the environment. And she had a clarity of thinking, and she had a quiet determination. So we took her on. She did really well on the year. She got a job afterwards at a development NGO. And 8 years on, she's the CEO of a climate change NGO. So that's what I mean by potential and realizing potential. How can Blueprint help do that? How can Blueprint help create better possible futures? Well, I think Blueprint brings two insights. One is an insight about business purpose, the idea that businesses can and should operate to a purpose that serves society for mutual benefit, where profit is the outcome, vital outcome, but an outcome and not the purpose. The second insight is around people, that human beings are fundamentally hardwired to seek meaning and the quality of relationships and a desire to make a contribution. People do behave in a purely self-interested way when threatened or disrespected, but people within and beyond business can and will contribute more to the well-being of others if they feel respected and connected to a meaningful enterprise. And from neuroscience, we know how much goes on unconsciously in our minds that's influenced by the constructs and the labels that we use, even the labels business and society. And this can limit sometimes and straitjacket our thinking. And I think part of what Blueprint can do is to help us to think differently. So a few months ago, we did a half-day session with the exco of a large company. They liked the fact that the Blueprint principles came from society, were business credible, were expressed in everyday language. And my colleague who started the session split the team into pairs. And actually, the conversation was first of all about personal purpose. And only then did we have later in the morning a conversation about organizational purpose. And what struck me was the way in which doing those two things together in some way seemed to bring the head and the heart together in the room for those people. And then when we also later on looked at the Blueprint principles as a gap analysis over against as a mirror really, to see, well, where is the business now and where it might be? What that seemed to do was also to energize people to say, yeah, how not only can we make our business better, but how can we in some way help us to see ourselves as serving society more fully than we are now, and to integrate those two thoughts. And I think, as I say, it helped them to think differently. Now, focusing on the question of purpose can be powerful, but I think the word purpose is being used now to mean almost anything, and alone, it's not enough. There's a wonderful story it goes back to Confucius, and it's one of his analects, where a wise king is asked, what would you do first when you take over a kingdom that's in disarray? And the wise king says, the first task is the restoration of the names. It's to give words back their proper meanings so that truth can be told and that people can find the best way. Now, purpose is so overused it can't carry much weight. But even understood properly as a reason for being, having a good purpose isn't enough. Living out a purpose that respects people and serves society depends crucially on the view of the human person which the organization operates with, whether consciously or unconsciously, through its structures and processes. The narrow view that people are purely self-interested becomes self-reinforcing, because we all tend to behave in a self-interested way in organizations and circumstances where everybody is assumed to be self-interested. That's how we become. But human beings have these other latent capacities which can be switched on and cultivated. Most people, if given the choice, want to make a positive contribution through work, to care for others, and to act beyond narrow self-interest, co-creating with them. And enabling such behavior to become commonplace and habitual in business is what brings purpose to life. It's what releases potential for fulfillment, creativity, and innovation. And it's what makes people care about a business. So that's why purpose and the view of the human person go together. Applying the blueprint principles and framework is hard, although, of course, there's some outstanding examples of businesses which have operated in just this way. But if it was easy, everybody would have done this already. And there's no manual textbook to work through, although we do have a change model, some developing case studies, and some measurement tools. But the change that Blueprint's helping to catalyze is being co-created by leaders in organizations who are testing, learning, and sharing their experience. And the commitment to openness, to dialogue, and shared learning is fundamental to the Blueprint approach. So let me share something. I found doing Blueprint on Blueprint is hard. It's taken us ages to actually get clear about our own purpose. And the other day, we had a conversation with the team where we had a request for feedback from a supplier who hadn't done a terribly good job for us. But the CEO of the supplier happened to be a friend of one of the team. So what do we say? When you looked at the framework, building trustworthy and trusted relationships, do you just do the minimum, or do you go beyond and give the difficult feedback? Which we did. What I've learned is that the Blueprint principles taken seriously always lead back to the framework, because the true foundation of Blueprint is a richer and more realistic view of the human person. So in some ways, I think what makes Blueprint difficult is not about size, although there are obviously key issues that arise with large organizations. It's because it's about people and our habits and ways of thinking, and the fact that it's hard to create the conditions for trusting relationships by letting go and accepting a level of vulnerability.